The Keio Line Shinjuku is a major terminal station for commuters on Tokyo's west side. Its 3 underground platforms serve nearly 800,000 commuters daily, making it amongst the most travelled non-JR stations in all of Japan. But it wasn't always this way. This is the story of the Keio Line Shinjuku Station, where we plan to explore its history and the reasons why it changed location 3 times on a journey spanning over 100 years. On May 30th, 1915, the Keio Electric Tramway Company extended its streetcar operation to Shinjuku. The tracks shared the road on the Koshu Highway, where they both crossed over the land bridge to terminate on a street station some 400 metres or quarter of a mile east from where the JR station is today. This street station was known as Shinjuku Oita, and it was on Minji-dori, just in front of this pedestrian crossing and directly opposite the Isetan department store. The location east of JR Shinjuku Station was chosen as it was the economic centre of the area thanks to its postal town history, and after the 1923 earthquake, the area east experienced further growth, which saw several big-name department stores spring up along Shinjuku-dori. This prompted the now Keio Electric Railway Company to move the Oita Street Station on the 28th of October 1927 into a new terminal building called the Keio Shinjuku Building. This 5-storey terminal building would be Japan's first integrated station department store complex. Its basement level was used as a dining area for commuters, while the ground floor was dedicated to station operations consisting of 3 platforms and a ticket hall. Levels 1 through to 5 was occupied by the Matsuya department store until 1936, until it went out of business due to fierce competition in the area. The new building and its 3 platforms were built 45 degrees from one another. This was due to the building and the tracks having an awkward alignment as they tried to conform and fit in with the limitations of the surrounding streets. But this awkward street alignment had no bearing on the station's success. The new building terminal meant the Keio Electric Railway Company was able to cater for higher passenger numbers and provide more services with greater capacity, as the 3 roof platforms were long enough to accommodate trains with 2 carriages. However, once the trains departed the terminal a short distance, they had to transition back onto the Koshu Highway as they headed west over the JR land bridge, and this is how things remained until 1945. So, if this station was so successful, why move? Shinjuku, like most other parts of Tokyo, was obliterated during air bombing raids carried out by the Allied forces during World War II. And on May 25, 1945, the Tsujunbashi electrical substation, which served the Keio Line, was hit, resulting in a reduction in voltage for the line. This created a problem for the trains at the eastern end of the line, as they didn't have enough electrical power to climb up and over the land bridge at the JR Shinjuku Station, cutting off the eastern terminal station at the end of the line. In order to restore services as soon as possible, the Japanese government scrambled the Army Corps to relocate and build a new Keio Line Shinjuku terminal. The site chosen was the west side of the JR Shinjuku Station. This meant that the trains wouldn't have to climb over the JR land bridge, and on July 24th, 1945, just 2 months later, the new Keio Line Shinjuku Station was opened. The new station was in close proximity to connecting buses and the Odaku train terminal. It consisted of a small ticket office and had 3 wooden platforms which could accommodate trains with 4 carriages. The station had a north-south alignment and had to take a hard 90-degree right turn as it entered the Koshu Highway and headed west along the same tracks as it did since 1915. However, by the late 1950s, passenger numbers using the service grew substantially, along with motor vehicle traffic in the area. This created traffic black spots where trains left the station and joined the highway. This problem, and with the support of new planning regulations for the Shinjuku area, triggered the Keio Electric Railway Company to move the station underground and build a new multi-storey department store on top. So, in 1961, the challenging task of moving the station directly under the above-ground operational station would begin. The construction method used would use 2 sets of piles, a shallow set and a deep set. The shallow piles would initially support the ticket hall, platforms and tracks, while the deeper set would be sunk to a depth of 15 metres and take over the support role from the shallow piles, allowing for dirt to be excavated, enabling the station and platforms to be made underneath. Construction took 2 years, and on the 1st of April 1963, the new underground station opened, along with a new 3-kilometre section of dual underground track, taking the tracks off the Koshu-Kaido Highway. Construction of the above-ground department store continued throughout 1963, and on the 1st of November, it would open to the public, completing the Keio Company's Shinjuku redevelopment plans. The new underground station and tracks greatly improved the traffic flows on the Koshu-Kaido Highway, and it allowed the rail company to increase train sizes from 4 cars to 6. In 1968, due to the ever-increasing demand, 7 car sets were introduced to the system, but still more capacity was needed to meet the unstoppable demand. The obvious solution was to increase the amount of cars per train. However, it was not easy to expand the relatively new Shinjuku terminal due to the newly completed underground car park to the rear, and the track configuration at the front had a set of scissor crossovers and a turnout, plus the sweeping curve as it headed west. The solution was to move a nearby set of scissor crossovers and the turnout further down the line, extending the platforms underneath the Lumini 1 department store whilst was under construction. In 1975, after making the necessary adjustments, the Keio Corporation was able to squeeze 10-car trains onto the platforms. The station platforms and concourse areas had several refreshes since the 1980s, and chest-height platform doors were added for additional passenger safety in March 2014. Other than a few minor construction changes like additional passageways such as the linkage between the Keio Line and the Keio New Line, not much has changed. The Keio Line Shinjuku Station has come a long way in its 104-year history, from 8-metre long streetcars to 20-metre long 10-car sets, and with the station now comfortable in its third location on the west side of Shinjuku Station, it's set to break passenger records in 2019, surpassing 800,000 daily commuters for the first time. With limited options available for expansion, the question remains, could the Keio Line Shinjuku Station accommodate 1 million daily passengers in the years ahead? In 1963, the Keio department store was still under construction on the west side of JR Shinjuku Station. In 1932, a 2-car train leaves the Keio Shinjuku building and enters the Koshu-Kaido Highway. In 1962, a train heads west on the Koshu-Kaido Highway towards the Shinjuku gas tanks. Again in 1962, cars crossing the tracks at the infamous point where the trains enter the Koshu-Kaido Highway. The Keio Shinjuku building in the top right hand corner of this 1950s aerial shot of northeast Shinjuku. 1963, Platform 3 just after the underground station is opened. An aerial shot of West Shinjuku in 1962 with the water filtration plant at the top centre of the shot. The late 1950s, 4-car sets are coming and going as they enter the Koshu-Kaido Highway. The late 1940s, the second station is very busy, west of JR Shinjuku Station. And finally, 1930s Keio Shinjuku building and how it looks today.